what are scalar waves and what do scalar wave weapons do? Bottom line, nothing in the air is safe or on the ground because any building can be penetrated and inside contents destroyed with narrower, wide crossed beams. There is nowhere to hide. These are optimal weapons for invading. These are silent weapons that we've heard for so many, many years. You must understand, these are directed. Everything has a frequency. Everything, just like individual humans, everything has a frequency. They can direct these weapons to a specific target, and they are.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. It's always great to have you back, even when the news is pretty bad. The hits just keep coming from these people, don't they? The earthquake in Haiti, you remember the fundraising from the Bush family and the Clinton family? Raised billions of dollars, not that the people of Haiti got any of it. Then we have the Paradise fires in California, other contrived fires as well, the earthquake recently in Turkey, how about the one in Morocco? Then we have the fires in Maui, and now the Category 5 hurricane that wiped out Acapulco. Deb Tavares is back with the truth about scalar weapons, directed energy weapons, and geoengineering. Thanks so much for tuning in. Spread it far and wide while you still can. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. Dr. Gary Richter, named America's favorite veterinarian, has helped thousands of dogs with issues that seemed impossible to go away. And he's made this video to alert you to something every pet owner must know. If your dog's coat is dull, if his energy is low, if their breath smells very bad, these can be the warning signs of bad health that get much more serious with your dog's age. And the first thing we want to look at is nutrition. Basically, the dog food makers take healthy ingredients and pressure cook them at a super high temperature. The food is supposed to last for 2 to 3 years on the shelf, but that means some pretty bad stuff has gotten into the food to make it last that long. Dr. Richter has been recognized with over 24 awards for his research, and you can watch and learn more about all of it for free. UltimateDogHealth.com/SGT. It's linked at the bottom of this video. He'll teach you exactly how he's helped dogs all over the world at UltimateDogHealth.com/SGT. Just click on the link in the description box below this video. Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the fact that we need a new vocabulary. Okay, weather weapons, it just doesn't cut it anymore. Geoengineering, no. These are scalar wave weapons. And what just happened to Acapulco? That wasn't a Category 5 hurricane in the traditional sense. It was a weather event that was caused to happen. It was a tropical storm that in a matter of hours went from a Category 1 or less to a Category 5. Devastating Acapulco. Why is this not being talked about in the mainstream horror media? We'll have Deb Tavares back on the line, stopthecrime.net, and she is going to sound the warning for all y'all. Please spread this far and wide. Deb, welcome back.
Sean, thank you so much. We're watching the devastation occurring daily now everywhere in many areas all over the world. And Acapulco was certainly a devastating weaponized scalar and energy weapons attack, where literally weapons are calibrated to hit certain areas and they can broaden out the hits. So we're going to get into scalar and talk about what this is. Again, I am Debra Tavares with stopthecrime.net. I also have primarywater.org. Please understand we are not running out of water. Water is renewable. And we do not need to desalinate to create water. We do not need to catch rainwater catchment, which is highly poisonous. Then I also run toxicsky.org. Well, I will encourage all of you to please listen to Michael Murphy's film, Unconventional Gray, posted at the top of toxicsky.org. We're going to jump into scalar waves today because these are Tesla death rays, and they have now fallen into the hands of those that are destroying this world. So what are scalar waves and what do scalar wave weapons do? So bottom line, nothing in the air is safe or on the ground with the use of scalar weapons or anything, anywhere, because any building can be penetrated and inside contents destroyed with narrower, wide crossed beams. There is nowhere to hide, and scalar waves can be sent to an aircraft, by an aircraft or a satellite, or even from government unidentified flying objects from Russia, Britain, Australia, and America. These are optimal weapons for invading. These are silent weapons that we've heard for so many, many years. It's important to understand what we are facing, because Tesla's shield is protecting a military target and can be made of 3 or more concentric shields that would produce multiple electromagnetic pulse energy and several heating of everything that enters it. So what we're looking at is the Iron Dome and how it's being used over Israel right now, and how the domes have been created to heat domes in the United States as well, and we'll talk about that. But Tesla, in the 1920s, did create a protective 3-dimensional shield or dome formed by 2 or more transmitters and sending widened scaled beams linked together over a target in a hemisphere shape. And instead of causing the target to explode with narrow or more intense cross beams, would be a wider, more encompassing beam that could form a large plasma shell outside something to be protected. Now, I could go into a lot of detail here, but because I just want to get the scalar wave assault system out there, and all of you need to do your own research, I have email blasted out an entire accounting of scalar waves, or I should say a large accounting of scalar waves, on stopthecrime.net on our email blast outs.
So
Yes.
I want you to level set for people, though, because we're watching B-roll of what happened in Acapulco, the aftermath here. And what we are seeing are high-rise condominiums and hotels, the shells of which are still intact. Okay, the building structures are still there, but these buildings have been cleaned out. The contents gone, the drywall, the kitchens, the furniture, they're gutted. I'm not sure how Acapulco could ever bounce back from something like this. There's not enough workers in Mexico to come in and fix this anytime in the next few years. Honestly, I don't know how they're going to recover. Can you help the audience understand what we're talking about as far as scalar waves or scalar weapons go as it pertains to this Cat 5 hurricane, which literally in the period of 5 hours went from a tropical storm to a deadly one?
Well, I can, Sean, and the most horrific aspect is it's not just the Category 5 hurricane that hit Acapulco and wiped out all the major hotels along the ocean front, but all the stores and markets, and literally hit the homes that were perched around the outskirts of town where all the workers lived. The place is devastated. This is an asymmetric warfare. When you take out the power, the water, and a sneak attack, which is exactly what happened. I think they were hit around midnight to 1 in the morning. You can correct me on that.
Nope, that's 100% correct.
Prepared. They were not prepared. It was just a tropical storm until it became a Category 5. And everything has been knocked out. Again, the electricity, the water, the roads. People can't get in and out. The roads are decimated. All communications decimated. This is what you do when you attack an enemy. This is exactly what you do, the protocols of warfare. But we see this happening in all of the fires, the directed energy weapon fires, certainly the ones that we experienced here in 2017 in Northern California, where we were burned out of 5,000 homes. We've seen fires being burned everywhere. These are not wildfires, the ones in Lahaina, everything. They're all scalar waves and directed energy weapons being used. And scalar beams can be sent by aircraft or satellite, or even from government unidentified objects. And the countries that have these weapon systems are Russia, Britain, Australia, and America. And again, these are optimal weapons for invading, and we are being invaded. We're being occupied. That is what is very clear. So I want to go on into what has happened and what we know. We know that the Russians can make a Tesla shield up to 200 miles wide. So this is a dome shield over areas they want to protect. And if you don't have the code, you cannot enter this. You will be burned alive, or it'll take out your system, your energy system, and it will dud out all of the equipment on planes. So it's important to understand the enormity of what we face, because these systems create globes or bullets of plasma, when crossed with scalar beams, they suck the energy out of the airspace in a cold explosion, causing it to freeze or sending extreme heat into a burn as very powerful laser beam. So I want everybody to think about when Tesla created this, he sent this beam through the earth and it created an earthquake. And you may remember that that was one of his inventions. But we have to know that hyperspace flux energy flows as waves in a sea of intense power. Where the energy is manufactured artificially, it can be made into different modes: pulse mode, energy extraction, or explosive mode. And why is this important to try to wrap your head around what I just said? An explosion extraction makes a sharp cooling, and all heated energy is extracted out of the air back to the transmitter. This can make everything and everyone freeze. I want everyone to look at what happened in a marathon in China a couple of years ago. Some of the marathon participants froze to death because in the midst of this run, they did this. They used scalar wave. People froze. There were, I think, 20 plus people that froze during this marathon. Let's go back to the freeze in Texas. Look at that. That was not normal. All of you know that. This is the use of scalar weapon systems. And the scalar waves preserves machines and buildings, but not people, dependent on how they decide to use it and blend it in with other weapons. If a burning energy is sent to a target, it can create human spontaneous combustion. Poof, dustification. Well, we've seen that in buildings. We've seen that in the towers that were dustified in 9/11. We've seen all of the evidence of dustified buildings in fire and energy weapon attacks throughout the United States and beyond. Important to understand the enormity. What's also very, very important to understand as well is that directed energy weapons, again, they're optimal for invading. The deployed directed energy weapons, or DEWs, D-E-W-S, many people call them DEWs. You've got to emphasize the D for directed. You must understand these are directed. Everything has a frequency. Everything, just like individual humans, everything has a frequency. They can direct these weapons to a specific target, and they are. So the energy weapons are now in place, including advanced mobile laser and radio frequency systems. And again, Russia has these weapons based on both high energy lasers and millimeter wave microwave systems that threaten friendly assets such as planes, vehicles, and helicopters. Look at all the helicopters that have been brought down in the United States as of late. Lots of the helicopters brought down by frequencies, most likely. So we have to understand the enormity of scalar waves. And again, I refer to my blast out because I'm just bunt kicking the idea of scalar weapon systems being used. They are. And they're in the hands of people that are not intending to use the scalar waves for healing, which they could otherwise be used for, but they are not. They are not. So I want to bring us back to the use of Lily waves and the combination of waves that we're facing, because Lily waves and psychotronic warfare, 5G battlefield, and the interrogation platform, mass mind control. This is not only for extermination purposes, but for absolute control of our bodies, the internal aspects of our bodies. We're hearing about synthetic transitions. Yes, this is what it's all about. Psychological and biological attacks on the populations. This is now the new modern strategy against the populations by the Bilderberg Steering Committee, for one. Mind control broadcasted in homes and walls and outlets, dirty electricity. We talked about that on a prior broadcast with you, Sean, about dirty electricity. At this moment, the only thing we can do is try to reduce the frequencies that we are exposing ourselves to, such as dirty electricity in the walls And again, we spoke about that on a prior broadcast. We talked about what people can do and what people must do. But now control the brain waves patterns remotely with electromagnetism and acoustic waves. So creating artificial thought and communication. So I want to jump into what we're seeing with some of these attacks of lone gunmen, because it's extremely important to understand how all of this was put forth a very, very long, long time ago.
I have something to share with you regarding that. Lone gunmen, mass shooter events, school shootings, just mass shootings in general. I have something I want to read to you guys from the CIA, but I just want to do a sound up on this 15-second clip. Okay, so a Category 5 hurricane, guys, is like a tornado, 180 to 200 mile an hour sustained winds, but so much larger than a tornado, devastating an entire city, an entire area, an entire county. And I guess one question I would have before we move off this, Deb, is do you have any speculation as to why Mexico? My understanding, at least in part, is this particular part of Mexico in which Acapulco is a very free-spirited region. It's a region of people that really don't give and pay much mind to the government at all, this according to Jeff Berwick. Do you have any idea why they decided to hit Acapulco?
Well, one can only speculate. I don't like to speculate, but of course, in the methodology of warfare that we now face, there are obviously many reasons. Certainly, if they eliminate resort areas for us to travel, they're not there for us to travel because we're being certainly guided in the direction of not being able to travel. Mm-hmm. You know that we recently discussed the splitting of the water molecule, which is 2-part hydrogen and 1-part oxygen, to create a new fuel out of hydrogen that is being created in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia by the United States as a fuel for airplanes. Now you have to fly to Mexico, so how many people, if they pull this type of fuel off, which they're doing and working on right now, and they're looking to fuel not only airplanes, but trains and ships and large transport, because they can't electrify everything. It won't work. But whether or not ultimately this hydrogen situation will work, who knows? But they are splitting the water molecule, reducing our water by doing that, and certainly planning to eliminate oxygen as well, because water is oxygen and we need it for plants. Yeah. But apart from that, I would just speculate again that they're cutting off tourist places, certainly hitting areas to devastate, depopulate, and shut down.
Yep. First Maui, now Acapulco. All right. So when they can take out paradise, they can take out anything, right? I think they're just sending us the message that they are beyond the reach of governments. They're beyond the reach of law. And most people don't even understand that we are being hit with weapons. So they don't understand wars being waged against them at all. All right. I know we're going to turn our attention to that shooting. And of course, the demon rats and the rhinos want to take the guns of the people. Where will that get us? Well, that'll get us into absolute communist despotism. I want to read this from the book, The Secret Government. One quick paragraph. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients is a process called Orion. The CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. Guys, this was written in 1991. Now, fortunately, the middle class is no longer begging the government to take their firearms. We understand that the only thing standing between us and absolute despotism is the Second Amendment, Deb.
Well, I would say that the Second Amendment is really with our idea that we have guns to fight scalar waves. Really? I don't think so. We can't stop these electronic microwave fires with our arms or with guns, but yet they come when they attack us and they surround the burned out, devastated microwave areas so that they can clean up the crime scene. And there's military surrounding with bigger guns than we have. Mm-hmm. And then they're bringing in looters. They brought in looters here in 2017. And there was no water. There were no firefighters, police, or sheriff on the mountain in Fountain Grove, a high-end multi-million-dollar housing community. And interesting, the 2 large water tanks that were required for fire water at the top of the hill for gravity flow happened to have been empty before that fire hit in 2017 on October 9th for earthquake retrofitting. Now, the reason we're not seeing water on these fires is it would become more obvious that they are microwave fires. You cannot put out microwave fires with water. They don't want us to catch on that they're using frequency weapons to destroy us and dustify us, cause human spontaneous combustion. We're full of heavy metals. We're all full of heavy metals. And again, they can target specifically. But I want to certainly have everyone go to my website. I have an extremely important document. It's also a CIA document. And it's the planned chemical sedation of the population, radio microwave frequencies for mass mind control. And how you can find it also is COM, COM-12 briefing, mind control operations, Aquarius group activities. So let's just read a couple of things in it that pertain to what you were reading, Sean. But there's nothing to do with our elected officials or the Second Amendment. Sadly, that is all keeping us powerless with the illusion that our representatives are going to keep us safe and protect us. So they have on page 1 of this document, they talk about electromagnetic radio waves and microwave pulse mine warfare has great advantages in the desired subject or population, which has no knowledge of the procedure being implemented. On page 2, mind control, chemical and polypharmaceutical saturation has already been achieved over the past 20 previous years of implementation with the purpose in mind control and achieved by deliberate overt introduction through exposure or consumption on behalf of the population base in everyday usage of public water supplies, airborne pollutants, chemical agents in a wide variety of foodstuffs. They go on to talk about how the plan of the Aquarius operation is to, and the Circle of Seven, the CEOs, to implement these various forms of mind control to augment a basic tolerance of each other under whatever guise is necessary. This will eventually lead to internal unrest and occupation by the United Nations forces, who will be under orders to keep the peace and of the host country. We are going to be hunted down if you are not compliant. And right now, with the use of all of these directed energy weapons that are calibrated and can hit specific targets, they don't have to hunt very deeply because there's absolutely nowhere to hide. Yeah. You have to understand this is precision targeting. This is playing us like a video game. We cannot thermally hide because we light up with all the stuff that we've ingested, the microdust that has been ingested in our bodies, and the heavy metals. And I will say that we're trackable, traceable, and locatable, even under the ground. We are locatable. Our minds are read. We know that. I've read patents on that. Databases, we're humans. We're databases now. Brain-to-brain harvesting our energy. No matter where you are, you'll be found. And we're used now for wireless body area networks. We know that. We're hearing that, but we need to know it. We don't know it. So, Sean, I know we want to keep this short, but I did want to quickly go over a couple of patents that I think might be of interest. And I did do an email blast out of patents so that all of you can go over with more detail than what I'm going to have time to go over right now. And you'll just go to stopthecrime.net, go to our email blast. You can look at the past email blast outs. You can download these. You need to understand your reality. And I'm going to quote a man who I was on the radio show many, many times through the years. And I know you know Dr. Stan Monteith. And before every single show, this is what he said: bringing you the story behind the story, the news behind the news, hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at and illusion is usually king. But in the battle for the survival of civilization, it will be reality and not illusion or delusion that will determine what our future will bring. And Dr. Stan sadly passed away in 2014. So we stand on the shoulders of many people before us. So when I look at some of these directed energy weapon patents, I can certainly read subliminal manipulation of subjective emotions via remotely directing audio waves, remote neurological control via sets of low frequency waves beamed at the brain. So when we look at these lone assassins, and you'll hear that they were hearing voices in their head, it's because they were.
Guys, please pardon the brief interruption and a quick word about a sponsor. Excess belly fat has been deemed the most dangerous fat of them all, as it's linked to so many health issues. Apple body shapes or large waistlines specifically are at higher risk for health issues than other body types. This is because excess belly fat grows deep in the abdominal cavity and puts pressure on some of the body's most vital organs. That's one of the reasons why me, along with so many other people, are turning to this amazing new product, which is thoughtfully formulated with science-backed ingredients that promote reduced fat storage, help to speed up the breakdown of fat, support weight management, reduce cravings, and boost your metabolism. It'll give your body the nutrients it needs to help supercharge your weight management efforts. The best part is, you'll get 51% off for the rest of this month or until they sell out. You'll also get a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free shipping, plus other free gifts. Get yours right now by going to trimwithsgt.com. That's trimwithsgt.com. The link is below.
So when we look at these lone assassins, and you'll hear that they were hearing voices in their head, it's because they were.
Yeah, voice to skull technology. I thought the same thing with this most recent shooting, and isn't it convenient that they implant in these people the notion to want to do these dastardly, horrific, satanic deeds of murder, and then they use that excuse to come after our guns. They're going to bring us to our knees, and, as you're talking, I continue to play this devastating footage from Acapulco. Deb, it looks like the entire area is going to have to be razed to the ground and rebuilt. And that's going to take, decades if it ever happens at all. It's horrifying, and it makes you wonder how much of human history has been hidden from us. They can just do stuff like this, wipe it off the map like it never even existed. I say that tongue in cheek, but look at Tartaria. We don't even know the totality of human history. I firmly believe that we don't. We've been lied to about just about everything.
Absolutely. I fully agree. That's a big conversation, and we can find lots of documents about that too.
Yeah.
But right now I do want to focus on a couple of documents that have just really, aside from all of the mind control documents that people can take a look at, and I know that we'll come back and do another show, and I'll go through some of these patents more, because I worked with and tried to help targeted individuals for many, many years. They were literally, I would say that they were the first ones that were massively experimented on for the past 30 plus years. And many of them were reaching out to me because I covered their stories. They told me one thing. I said, what can we do for you until we are as targeted as you are? And they said, believe me. And Myron May, you may recall, a wonderful legal attorney who was in Florida, Myron May. He couldn't take the voice to skull. He could not take the family rejection of what he was trying to tell them. And he ended up staging his own murder on the library stairs in a university there. So I want to just say he thanked me for having targeted information on my website, stopthecrime.net, because all of us are now being targeted. You need to understand what kinds of weapons are going to be used, and frequencies are the name of the game. So you have to reduce your frequencies. In fact, it has been recommended that everyone turn off their alert systems on their phones, because that's pulsed microwave frequency, and it's considered a weapon system because your phones are weapons. So many people are now considering doing that. It's something for all of you to consider so that you are not pounded continuously with these frequencies. But let's get into this, because I thought this was horrific, and I didn't know about this until just recently. It's a patent, and it's a patent that was funded by grant money for the use of investigating extremely low frequencies on primates. And the guise was to see how the extremely low frequencies would affect people that were in submarines. Of course, they would not have gotten the grant money if they did what they ended up doing, because they were torturing the primates. They kept them strapped in for days and weeks on end for a year with extremely low frequencies pouncing on them. But what happens when you blast monkeys with extremely low electromagnetic frequencies for a year? Well, the military knows, and it fattened them up. It made them fatter. So for the males, they concluded that with the male monkeys. And so this is evidence of a largely unknown causal effect, likely, in our obesity plague here in the United States. We're fat. And it's likely because we're being hit with extremely low frequencies. We're overweight. We are considered overweight, as many in Mexico are as well. So it's a 60 hertz power grid weight gain with efforts on weight and RF frequencies. And the U.S. Air Force might have been the ones to have looked at this. They were. This patent was all about that. So we have to understand EPA fat tissue studies, etc. We've been electronically fattened up so that we are not as productive as we would otherwise be, and they formed a completely unbelievable market with weight reduction schemes. We know that, many of which are very poisonous as well.
Well, let me just say real quickly, it reminds me of factory farming. Human beings are now the factory farm, Deb. You've just described it perfectly. We, human beings, live on a factory farm, and too many people don't even realize it.
That's absolutely true. And speaking about that, I've recently found an animal depopulation instruction handbook on how to kill all our animals. But humane deaths, of course, with bioweapons and diseases and weather-related events that they claim will reduce their food supply, so they need to be slaughtered humanely. Lack of water and the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions because of their fecal material and their gas. And it goes into the water supply, they're saying. They are transitioning us from our pets to robotic animals. Make no mistake. You can go online. You can buy yourself a little puppy, a little monkey. You can buy yourself little fuzzy, furry things that are programmable. They are not live, and they will never replace our animals that have been chipped and poisoned, because everyone is chipping. The inhumane societies or humane societies won't let you have an animal unless it's RFID chipped. Again, frequencies, absolutely destroying our animals.
And destroying country after country after country. And I just want to make the point, when we talk about scalar weapons, okay, it's not just hurricanes, guys. It can be earthquakes that are caused to happen. You know, as I'm running this footage of what's happening in Acapulco, Deb, I'm not kidding when I say the whole area is going to have to be razed. It's going to have to be demolished and rebuilt. If it ever happens at all, I think they just turned Acapulco into Haiti with a hurricane versus an earthquake. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. All of these hotels and condos that people have been watching during this broadcast, they're now being inundated by water on a daily basis. They're open to the environment. So even if the structures survive the hurricane, the structures will not survive over time as they're penetrated by water on a daily basis. All the windows are gone. The walls in many cases are gone.
Yes.
So the hotels appear to still be standing, but they're trashed. I mean, you cannot inhabit those anytime soon, Deb. It's Haiti.
Yeah,
they turned Acapulco into Haiti.
They'll be red tagged because of all of the mold that has seeped into all of the material, the floors, the walls, all of this wicks up into the wall material. And I have seen buildings that have been red tagged because they've been flooded out. And many of you listening, you know also what it's like to be flooded out and the amount of damage and cost if you have the money to try to recover from flooding. So we are indeed watching multiple weapons being used on Acapulco, not just the scalar waves and all of the other frequencies that were directed to destroy Acapulco, but then all of the heavy rain, which is continuing to exacerbate and certainly add to the destruction. Just like with fires, smoke is an added weapon. So here the water is. And I agree. But people must understand scalar waves. They must. And you must start looking into it. These are death rays. And there is nowhere to hide. Nowhere.
That's
These
right.
are in the air everywhere.
That's right.
And there is no known methodology to prevent this saturation of scalar waves. There are some things that people can do with other frequencies, Faraday cages and blocking cell signals in mission darkness bags, etc. But scalar waves are in a completely different type of energy weapon.
We're going to go to stopthecrime.net right now. Everybody should sign up for Deb's email blast. Again, guys, this is an emergency broadcast in the sense that we just want to get the truth out, the truth that you're not going to hear from the mainstream horror media. You will never hear this from CNN. You'll never hear it from MSNBC or the Washington Post and NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, that CIA asset. You'll never hear it. By the way, they're ignoring Acapulco in this Cat 5 hurricane altogether. Why? One of the people I see out there talking about it is Jeff Berwick, who has a home in Acapulco, and he was warning people in those 4 hours leading up to it becoming a Cat 5. It was being ignored by the local media. There was no warning. How is that possible? Friends, how is that possible? We live in upside down world, Deb.
Well, this is all legal, and we go back to the NASA War document where they talk about the use of extremely low EMF microwaves. They talk about using microwaves for attack purposes, chemical and anti-functional weapon systems, psychological effectiveness. It's all legal. And now remember, on page 93. Now, what I'm going to be saying when you hear me read page 93 as a PowerPoint from the NASA War document is everything is being played now. Deaths are being played to us now on prime time in living color. So now listen, this PowerPoint, the NASA War Plan, was delivered only 2 months before 9/11. On page 93, it says this: exploit CNN syndrome, sink carriers via swarm attacks, capture, torture Americans and other people in living color on prime time, terror attacks within the continental United States, using binary biologicals, attack critical infrastructure, take down with an EMP or radio frequencies against our brain, conduct serious psy-war, collateral damage exploitation. We are now watching all of these disasters like these are just movies. These are not movies. This is real time in living color. Just as we watch the jumpers jumping out of the trade towers. Were you aware that just under 50% of the people that lost their lives on that horrific day were jumpers? They were fleeing microwave weapons. Did you know that? They even saw someone combust. I don't know if you knew that. If you haven't known that, you need to go back in time and understand the greatest hoax in the use of scalar weapon systems that begun this mass eradication. And you could get the book, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11. And this book was written by Judy Wood. My husband is rereading this, Sean, and I will tell you, some of the details in this book I had long since forgotten. But it's good to bring it back to mind because it is what we're seeing now and witnessing now. And we missed it. Many people did not understand the enormity of what we saw that day.
Right. I couldn't agree more because I felt some infighting in the space because of Dr. Judy Wood. And now that enough time has passed, I can go back and revisit her work and her claims and see that the door is open for the conversation about these types of weapons being used on 9/11, where previously many of us were really bought into the idea of absolute controlled demolitions with thermate and thermite in the work of Dr. Stephen Jones and David Griffin and so many others. But there's room now for the conversation, and people must go back. We need to revisit 9/11. We need to understand the technology because now it's being rolled out on a wider scale. And instead of taking down 2 or 3 buildings in New York City, they're taking out entire cities. Maui, Acapulco, what comes next?
Well, I can tell you that the capability of scalar waves can take out an entire city. And Acapulco, I would venture to say, was pretty much entirely devastated. But these weapons can take out an entire continent. Did you know that? Can take out an entire continent. And we don't have control of these weapons. Some evil forces, I don't know what you want to call them, Sean, but we are being genocided, absolutely genocided. And this is legal, because if it weren't legal, there would be some accountability, and there is not. So we are being wiped out with directed energy weapons, and we have been for a very, very long time. And I did the video, The Cooking of Humanity and the Use of Cell Phones. You should go back and look at that. And you should look at my interview with Trevor Coppola and Debra Tavares, where we talked about the NASA war document. During those days, I will tell you, reading these documents was horrific. And Sean, I can only tell you that if people just read some of these documents, they will have a better understanding of what they face. And why do I feel that they need to have a better understanding of what they face? I'm in some slim hope porn that maybe there will be some people that can survive, some remnant, because with this massive capability of taking us out, and they are, we have to try to provide some survivability. Yeah. And I go over some things that people can do, some making sure that you know where your springs are for water, making certain that you are able to survive. Many of us are not going to be able to pack up in a backpack and run through the woods and hide. Many of us can't survive that kind of immediate evacuation. And particularly when we're being told that it's a sport to hunt humans, and we can be tracked no matter where we are. And scalar waves, again, are trackable waves. They can target anybody. They can target a single person in a room of a couple of hundred people. I've seen it happen. So with that, Sean, I want to thank you. We want to certainly have people go to stopthecrime.net, read the entire blast out of scalar waves. I only could wish that it would be used for our benefit. It could have been good, but it is not. It's being used to destroy us. Yeah. So with that, Sean, thank you so much for this emergency broadcast today.
Deb, yeah, it's my pleasure. Anytime, as you know. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you. Stopthecrime.net is the website, guys. And as we wrap this up, I'll just say that when we try to put a name on this thing, whatever apparatus is in control of the world, Catherine Austin Fitts calls it Mr. Global. Well, my guest, Nathan Reynolds, who escaped that Illuminati family, the Reynolds family, he says it's radical, intelligent evil. It's spiritual in nature, and it's far, far more nefarious than anything that can be conjured up by the minds of men. But minds of men have been captured by this thing, by radical, intelligent evil. And they want to extinguish every man, woman, and child on this planet, at least those who won't serve them in their new world order, as slaves in perpetuity for the rest of human history. Friends, we got to get this out. Spread it far and wide within your sphere of influence. We are under attack, and you don't need to understand all the science. You just need to understand wars being waged against humanity. Silent weapons for quiet wars have been engaged against us. Friends, I'll remind you every single day for free. Check us out for free at sgtreport.com. That is the antidote to corporate propaganda and all of those mockingbird, mainstream media, CIA, CNN lies. May God truly bless you and your family and fill you with the spirit of courage, so that you might take action, stand up, and help save us all. God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
The famous statement from the Bible is, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. And when we launch these wars around the world, all of them represent something that goes against what the founding fathers believed in, which is non-intervention in other nations' affairs. And there are some decent historians out there, and assuming I'm alive, I'm going to be one of the people who writes this. We'll make the case that the leaders of the Western countries threw away an opportunity for peace and put the world on the brink of war and thermonuclear destruction. For what? To protect their personal consumption, their 401ks, their corporate indebtedness. All of this is for the sake of the corporate cartels that run the government. And Biden is nothing but a puppet of these corporate cartels.